What if everything you believe about yourself, your name, your story, your struggles, isn't the full truth? What if the real you has no beginning and no end? Sounds crazy, right? But deep down, part of you already knows it's true. You've felt it. In the quiet moments, in the unexplainable dreams, in that strange sense that something's missing. Here's the truth they never taught you. You're not just a body with a soul. You're a soul having a human experience. And that soul, it's eternal. You've just forgotten, and it's not your fault. You were born into a system that trained you to forget through fear, routine, and distraction. But there's a way back, a way to remember who you really are without needing a guru or giving up your life. In this video, you'll learn how to break the illusion of time, wake up from the identity trap, and finally reconnect with the eternal truth within you. It's not about believing in something new. It's about remembering what was always there. Let's begin this journey of soul remembrance together, because once you remember, you'll never see yourself the same way again. 1. The amnesia of the soul. Most people walk through life thinking they're just a body with a name and a job. But behind all the roles, there's something ancient watching it all, something that's been here long before this identity was even born. This is the soul, and strangely enough, it's forgotten itself. This soul remembrance doesn't happen through logic or books. It's a deep inner recognition. Like when you wake up from a dream and realize you were never the character in the dream. You were the one dreaming all along. The moment we enter this world, a kind of veil drops over our awareness. We begin to think that our worth comes from how much we achieve, how others see us, or how well we fit in. The eternal part of us gets buried under years of conditioning, and we start to believe that we're separate from everything, disconnected from the divine. That's where the amnesia of the soul begins, not because we lost something, but because we stopped looking inward. Think about it. How often do people slow down and ask, "Who am I beyond my thoughts?" They're too busy chasing deadlines, scrolling feeds, or worrying about bills. The noise of the world drowns out the silence where the truth lives. But here's something interesting. Those quiet moments when you feel a strange peace for no reason, that's your soul knocking, reminding you that there's more to you than what meets the eye. If you've ever looked at the stars and felt a weird sense of homesickness, like you belong somewhere else, that's not your imagination. That's your eternity stirring inside. That's the soul trying to remember what it forgot. And this inner whisper is exactly what leads us to the next trap, the illusion of time. 2. How the illusion of time traps consciousness. Time feels like a straight line. We're born, we grow old, and then we die. That's the script we're handed. But what if that line is just a mental projection? The illusion of time is one of the strongest spells in this world. It convinces us that the past defines us and the future controls us. Meanwhile, the only thing that ever truly exists is now. Consciousness isn't bound by clocks. It lives in the eternal present, but we rarely notice it because our minds are always somewhere else. When someone says, "I don't have time," what they really mean is they're caught in a mental loop. They're either replaying old regrets or imagining problems that haven't even happened. This constant jumping between past and future creates anxiety, guilt, and stress. And it makes the soul forget its own timeless nature. That's the trap. Consciousness, which is eternal, gets stuck in a cycle that doesn't even exist outside of thought. It's like being hypnotized by a movie and forgetting you're in a theater. To escape this trap, you don't need a time machine. You need presence. You can start small. Sit for 5 minutes and just breathe without trying to get anywhere. That alone can begin breaking the illusion. Another powerful tool is journaling in the morning. Not about your to-do list, but about what you're grateful for right now. The more attention you give to the present moment, the more cracks you create in the illusion of time, and that's where awareness starts to grow again. Funny enough, even quantum physics is catching up. Experiments show that the observer influences reality and that time isn't as solid as we once believed. That backs up what mystics have said for centuries. Eternity is here, not somewhere far away. But here's the twist. If you're already eternal, then this life isn't your first rodeo, and that's exactly where we're headed next. 3. You existed before this life and will after. The idea that this is your only life is one of the biggest lies ever told. You weren't born when your body came out of the womb. You just entered a new chapter. Your soul has existed across lifetimes, through different forms, cultures, and even worlds. And yet, here you are, thinking this moment is all there is. But if you've ever had déjà vu, dreams that feel more real than waking life, or an unexplainable connection to something ancient, that's your soul whispering, you've been here before. Soul remembrance doesn't happen with facts. It happens through feeling, a deep, intuitive knowing. Some people experience this when they travel to a place they've never been, but somehow feels like home. Others through deep meditation, or even spontaneous moments of awe. And then there are those strange coincidences that line up like breadcrumbs on a path. These aren't random. They're signs that your eternal self is trying to wake up within the illusion of this temporary life. What's interesting is how so many ancient traditions knew this truth long before science caught up. The Egyptians, the Hindus, and even some early Christians believed in the soul's journey beyond death. They didn't fear the end. They prepared for what came after. You don't have to believe in reincarnation to feel the weight of eternity in your chest. You just have to be honest enough to admit that there's more going on than what your 5 senses can measure. So, if you existed before this body and will exist long after it's gone, what does that say about who you really are? You're not your story. You're not your mistakes. You're not even your name. You're something that can't be destroyed or forgotten, only covered up. And that covering, the one making you forget who you are, was built by something very specific: identity. Let's take a closer look at how that was programmed. 4. The matrix of identity. Why you forgot who you are. From the moment you're born, society starts building your identity for you. You're told your name, your gender, your nationality, your religion, all before you can even speak. And little by little, you start to believe that these labels are who you truly are. But identity is just a costume the soul wears to play the game of life. The deeper truth is that you're an eternal being. But when you get too caught up in the character, you forget you're the actor behind the scenes. This identity becomes a cage. It tells you what you should want, how you should feel, and even how to suffer, and it's reinforced constantly through media, school, family, and even religion. It creates a loop. You think, you feel, and you behave in ways that keep confirming who you think you are. But that's not soul remembrance. That's ego preservation. And the ego loves comfort zones, even if they're painful. Because fear, believe it or not, is safer than freedom for the identity. Let's get real. How often do you say things like, "That's just who I am," or "I've always been this way"? These phrases sound harmless, but they're actually traps. They stop your growth. They lock you inside a version of yourself that was built by other people's expectations. Breaking free starts with asking powerful questions. Not "Who am I?" but "Who told me who I am?" That one hits different, and from there, awareness begins to sneak through the cracks. The beauty is, identity isn't evil, it's just incomplete. It's like playing a video game and thinking the avatar is all there is. But when the player wakes up, everything changes. You start seeing patterns instead of problems. You feel the illusion of time stretching and bending. You remember you've done this before, and in those subtle shifts, you begin to notice something else stirring, something that's been sleeping, but is now starting to rise: your eternal nature. 5. Signs that your eternal nature is awakening. There's a moment, usually quiet, often unexpected, when something shifts. You feel less drawn to the noise and more pulled toward meaning. That's not just you maturing. That's your eternal nature beginning to wake up. You might find yourself craving silence, questioning everything, or even feeling like the people around you just don't get it anymore. It's not that you're better than anyone. It's that your soul is remembering what the world made you forget. And that kind of spiritual awakening changes everything. Another sign? You start to see through the illusion of time. Moments stretch out and suddenly you're noticing the way sunlight hits a leaf, or how peaceful a room feels when no one's talking. It's subtle, but it's real. You begin caring less about chasing goals and more about feeling alive. Old fears don't grip you like they used to. You realize that even pain has a purpose, and weirdly enough, things you once thought were coincidences start feeling like divine nudges, clues that you're on the right path. Your habits shift too. You might start waking up earlier without an alarm. Maybe you get the urge to read books you wouldn't have touched before, like The Untethered Soul or Journey of Souls. Music hits you differently. Nature feels sacred, and material stuff just doesn't hold the same weight. These aren't random personality changes. They're signs your consciousness is expanding. And the more it expands, the more your soul remembrance takes the wheel instead of the ego. But here's the tricky part. This awakening isn't always comfortable. You'll outgrow people, environments, even your own thoughts. You'll have moments of confusion, loneliness, and doubt. But that's all part of it. You're peeling back layers of identity that were never really you. And as you do, one thing becomes clear. This isn't about adding anything to yourself. It's about removing what was never true. What comes next is powerful. Learning how to stay in that eternal awareness through presence. 6. Remembering through silence, presence, and awareness. Most people think awakening is some dramatic event, like lightning from the sky or a voice from the clouds. But in reality, the deepest soul remembrance often begins in silence. Not just external quiet, but inner stillness, the space between thoughts. When you sit in that space long enough, you start to notice something. You're not your mind. You're not your emotions. You're the one watching all of it. And that simple realization, that's where eternity begins to show itself. Presence isn't about escaping your life. It's about fully entering it. When you wash the dishes, wash them. When you're with someone, really be with them. That's how you train your consciousness to live in the now instead of the illusion of time. A great practice is mindful walking. No phone, no distractions, just you and your steps. It may sound simple, but it's powerful. In that quiet, something ancient rises within you, whispering, "You've always been here." Awareness works like a flashlight in a dark room. The more you shine it inward, the more illusions start to fade. You begin noticing how reactive you've been, how much of your life is lived on autopilot, and slowly you start choosing instead of reacting. Meditation helps, but so does conscious breathing, especially in high-stress moments. Try the 4 to 7 8 method. Inhale 4 seconds, hold 7, exhale 8. Do that for just a minute and notice how fast you drop back into presence. And what's wild is that once you start living like this, you begin feeling the eternity that's always been just under the surface. Life slows down, but your clarity speeds up. You feel more grounded yet more free, more aware yet less attached. And this shift sets the stage for something most people miss: how to carry that eternal presence into a world that's constantly changing. Because the challenge isn't remembering who you are, it's staying that way when life gets loud. Let's explore that next. 7. Living from eternity in a temporary world. Living from eternity in a world that constantly screams for urgency is no small feat. Everywhere you look, there's pressure to rush, meet the deadline, answer the message, chase the next goal. But when you live from soul remembrance, urgency loses its grip. You realize that you're not in a race, you're not late, you're eternal. And that changes how you move through life. You don't react, You respond. You don't chase, you attract. You're not surviving, you're creating with awareness. Let's get practical. Imagine being in traffic, late for a meeting. Most people tense up, curse under their breath, spiral into stress. But someone living from their eternal self breathes deeply, tunes into the moment and remembers, this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. Maybe it's a lesson in patience. Maybe it's a chance to break a habit. That mindset flips everything. It transforms even the most annoying moments into spiritual practice. Presence becomes your power. Living from eternity also means your choices shift. You invest in experiences, not just results. You value conversations over competition. And when people trigger you, you see it as a mirror, not a threat. You might spend more time in nature, write your thoughts in a journal, or start every day in silence. These aren't random habits, they're anchors that help you remember who you really are. And the more you live this way, the more aligned your outer world becomes with your inner truth. But here's the paradox. Even though you're eternal, you're also here to live this temporary life fully. That's the real mastery, not escaping the world, but living in it without forgetting your soul. You enjoy the game, but you don't get lost in it. You feel deeply, love fiercely, and still know that nothing can truly break you. Because at the core, beyond all the labels and noise you remember, you were never just human. You were always the divine in disguise. If you want to elevate your vibrations and manifest with more ease, I have prepared something special for you. Click the link in the first pinned comment and join us in the journey of awakening your inner mage.